Here are a few quick bullet points about Purler Wrestling Academy. We started in 1999. We were the nation's first academy for wrestling and have since grown to the nation's largest and maybe even one of the most successful, if not the most successful. In fact, our best year ever was in 2022, where out of all of Missouri's high school boys state champions, 23% of them trained at Purler Wrestling consistently. That doesn't count the athletes who just came to some of our camps and clinics. These were members of our academy, and 18% of the girls. So in the 4 years previous, 19% of all of the state of Missouri's high school state champions trained with Purler Wrestling. So it's generally considered the place to be, and I think that those statistics don't lie. So you're in the right place. Now, a few things to keep in mind. We have our core skills program. We're going to add beginners at some point in time. But right now we have our core skills, which is a one-page drill plan. Everything revolves around the very common positions in wrestling and the best 2 to 3 ways to score from those common positions. And you're going to drill this system over and over and over and over. Then you move up, hopefully, eventually, you should be working to move up into our elite room, PWA Elite. Don't let the name fool you. You don't have to be elite to get into that room. You just have to be ready to make the next level of commitment. So that's a year-round commitment for youth and middle school athletes, 8-month commitment for high school. There is no contract at this time. But, it is a room where you're going to go from a 1-page drill plan to a 3.5-page drill plan. It's still revolving around the common positions, but there are some positions in wrestling that are more common as you get to be more advanced. Athletes react differently in more advanced ways. So we start to say, this is a pretty common position that we're now encountering as we become a more skilled wrestler and entering the more high-level events and competing against the more high-level wrestlers. So we also start to get into the counters to counters from these very common positions. So that's what you can expect in our PWA Elite. And then we have PWA World Class Wrestler Program, which is pretty much it is our main program. We have only one location for that at this time, and that is invite only. So the athletes who have been in our elite program for some time and have mastered that, they're ready for this 7-page drill plan. And in the off season, we have freestyle training in this room as well for our boys and girls. So we do have a few locations. They're called Pinnacle. They're sort of a hybrid between elite and world-class program. So if you look at our schedule and there's one of those locations in your vicinity, that's basically our world-class wrestler program, but it's drill only. It's more technique-based, no live wrestling. It's just for skill development. So if you have one of those locations in your area, you should definitely look into doing that. Now, if you're in the core skills, you can train in any other core skills room that you want, no extra cost. If you're in elite, you can train in any other PWA elite room that you can get to, and all the core skills. And then the World Class Wrestler Program kids can train at any other World Class Wrestler Program gym or elite or core skills. And then the Pinnacle kids the same. They can train at any elite room or core skills room that they want. No extra cost. So we have athletes training 3 or 4 days a week. And you also get nice discounts on our competition camps, which you should make sure you attend those. You're going to get 5.5 hours of live wrestling and 4 hours of drill time crammed into a weekend. Our biggest camp so far, we had 184 wrestlers from about 30 different states come in. These are just for weekend camps. 6 kids, 2 different groups of kids flew in from Alaska. They come from everywhere to train with us. So I'm not exaggerating for our weekly academy when I say that we have athletes and families who will drive 6-7 hours round trip. We have had 9 families sell their homes and move just within the past 2 years from Oregon, Maryland, California. We just had a family move from Springfield, Missouri. Their daughter was driving up to train with us 9 hours round trip just for one practice on Tuesdays at our girls only location. So they come from everywhere to train with us, and our camps are no exception. But there are nice generous discounts for summer camps and any other clinics and skill camps and things that we have, as well as our competition camps. But, the academy plus the competition camps, those work hand in hand. You should hit as many of those as possible. We offer those 10 months a year. You should at least try to hit 3 to 5 of those a year. I think it would be a game changer for you to consider that a package deal. Super, it's a super opportunity for everyone. Now, one thing I would like to say is, unlike some sports or let's say businesses, you don't have to bring much to the table. If you pay someone, you hire someone to wash your car, they wash your car, and you're very happy and you keep hiring them. Well, if you have a personal trainer who comes over to your house 3 mornings a week, mom or dad, they expect you to follow the dietary plan when they're not around. They expect you to get your steps in every day. They expect you on your off days to do these maybe auxiliary lifts or maybe the stretching. You have to bring a lot to the table. That's the space that we operate in. We can make you very, very good. But if you want to become great, your athletes have to do some of the extras like the weight training. And you should follow our social media and our YouTube channel where I give advice to parents. I'm a tremendous, pretty much an over communicator. So I'll share a lot of parenting advice with you. Because wrestling being such an emotionally draining sport, we got to make sure that the parents aren't accidentally scaring the kids and making them nervous and full of anxiety before a match. It's proven once you have the stress hormones pumping through your system, your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain that's needed for decision-making, quick decision-making, it turns off. And so sometimes we're doing great work in our rooms, but the kids aren't winning, and it's because these other things have to be done, like the weight room, like possibly trimming down a little bit if your wrestlers are old enough and they need to be competing at a competitive weight class. Light training year-round. If you can't train year-round, you don't have to in the core skills room. It's not a year-round commitment. You can come and go as you please. We want to accommodate everyone. But as the kids get more and more serious about wrestling, if they decide they want to try to win state medals, compete on the national level in high school, and they dream and really would like to compete in college, it's pretty much a year-round sport nowadays. It has been for 20 years, actually. But specifically the past 8 or 10 years, the whole recruiting market has changed. It just now became, over the past 5 or 6 years, extremely competitive to compete in college because the number of programs have been dropped. There were over 230 Division I wrestling programs back in the 70s. Now they're, at this point in time, in 2022, there are 78. So the numbers of athletes who are incredible because of just the explosion of wrestling, I believe partly due to MMA and the awareness and the respect that you hear guys like Joe Rogan and the MMA stars. I mean, our doors are busting open with athletes wanting to learn how to wrestle who are coming from the jiu-jitsu world. So having said that, it's getting to be much more competitive. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. Now remember, as far as pushing your kids, if they don't want to wrestle, you should not push them. They should need to do something that they love to do. But if they want to wrestle, it's okay to push your kids to do something that they want to do. Just like you could use that push from your personal trainer who's showing up, right? So I would encourage you to not be afraid to push your kids to go to practice 2 hours a week. They have 168 hours a week. It's 2 hours a week. And you say, well, that's almost not even enough. Well, with the hour of live wrestling, that's 52 hours of live wrestling. And that the other kids are not getting because they're taking a lot of time off. Now, 10% of the nation is training year-round. 3 or 4 or 5% very seriously hardcore year-round. 3 to 4 or 5 times a week on the mat. And out of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of wrestlers, that's a lot of wrestlers. So, if your kids are talking serious about high-level wrestling, we would never say, oh, well, you study when you feel like it. You only go to class, 1/3 of the year, and performance-wise, you're a B-, a C+. I think you can make it to Harvard. I think you can do that, honey. You would not do that. But we do that in wrestling all the time. It's okay to say, you are not going to make it. Now, if you don't want to have these high goals, that's okay. But if you do have these high goals, you're not going to be able to take 2/3 of the year off and not be on a wrestling mat. You have to get into a fight every week. If you want to be a combative sport athlete, you can't go without fighting in a combative setting and expect to compete. The callousness and toughness, it just isn't there. So I would really encourage you, before your wrestler joins, to think about what their goals are. And if their goals are, hey, I'm just going to try this out. I don't know if I even want to do this. Fine, put them in the program. But as they get more and more into wrestling, and they may not. I did soccer in high school until my sophomore year, and then I just focused on wrestling. I did not put a lot of extra time in, but I wasn't daydreaming about being a professional soccer player either, or going to college. I didn't expect my parents to spend thousands of dollars a year traveling around the nation doing the national soccer tournaments. I did not do that. My focus was wrestling. So we have wrestlers in our academy, and their main goal is to play baseball in college, and that's where they're putting their time and money. And so they're in the core skills room. But as you start to see where your kids are at, and they start to really steer towards wrestling, like, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. I want to wrestle at Oklahoma State, which is where I wrestled, or I want to wrestle at this school or that school, or I want to be a state champion like my friend. Then we're starting to say, okay, let's get into elite. Let's go year round. Let's get on the mat twice a week. Sure, maybe during football or soccer season. If you're doing other sports, you can only practice once a week, sometimes twice. Maybe there's a rain out of baseball. You run to practice. Those things add up. Go to the competition camps. Hit our summer wrestling camps. There's discounts for those as well. And you're really kind of all in. And then from a parenting standpoint, when your kids are saying, I don't want to go to practice, then you just have to push them and say, no, get in the car, because, I'm spending hours and hours in the stands watching you wrestle, and I'm supporting you, and you have these high goals. You have your goals taped to the refrigerator. We're going to go to practice. You need to get in the car. And you want to push your kids to stay involved, because, they're going to thank you for that later. So certainly we have kids from 6 years old all the way up to 19. You have different experience levels. Everyone's welcome. That's the reason we have Core Skills Elite and these other programs. But I would encourage you, as your kids get older and you start seeing signs of more seriousness, push them to practice. Don't let them make that decision. And if their main sport is football, but they also want to wrestle varsity and win a state medal, maybe a state title, then they need to get on the mat once a week in the off season. And if they can't make academy for a few weeks, then do the competition camp. So I would encourage you to understand that wrestling's it's a lot like gymnastics and jiu-jitsu. It's so skill intensive and drill intensive. Not that football isn't, but some of those guys will go months without touching a football. They're lifting weights. You can't just lift weights and then jump on a balance beam 8 months from now and get a college scholarship. You can do that in football. Just sheer raw athleticism is a big part of track sprinting. You cannot do that in wrestling. Just being really tall can pretty much set you up for success in basketball, let's be honest, and volleyball. That doesn't make a difference in wrestling or jiu-jitsu or gymnastics. So wrestling is a skill sport, and that's the reason we mapped our programs out accordingly. But definitely push your kids, keep them in the room, and it's going to be beneficial to all of you. And one day they're going to sit back and they're going to say, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Either way, if you have questions, you can always give me a call. Numbers on the website. Would love to have you guys.